Okay, so we have our base image here, and I'm going to open up my layers tab because that's the tab that you're generally going to be working in and out of all the time when you're working on an image, and you'll see that we have it in our background layer. Now, the first thing I'm going to do to this image is I'm going to start looking to change the tones. I have some issues here. I've an obvious issue here that I'm going to address a little bit later on, in that there's a tear in the curtain, and that's going to be addressed. But we also have these folds in the curtain behind our subject, and in this case, nothing wrong with black curtains, but in this case I want to create more of a kind of a black empty space that our subject is going to be standing in. So it stands to reason that I could do a number of things here, but the most obvious thing to do is to try and isolate all of the tones that the curtain has in the folds and on the front, and try and darken them so much that they become black, that they get pushed down. Now this is better than doing it with a paintbrush and painting black over everything, because you get to keep the natural edges around the subject, and it also looks a little bit more natural than just painting a flat color on top of things. So to get any kind of an adjustment like that, you go down to the button down here, the little circle with the black and white on it, and click on, in this case, we'll go with levels. Now, levels and curves do virtually the same thing, but the levels is good for doing a kind of a big blanket change to the image, or on a big area of the image. Now, the levels shows me a histogram, and the histogram basically corresponds to all of the pixels in the image and where they currently are mapped to relative to perfect black, to 50% gray, and to 100% white. So these three sliders tell us how many pixels are black, mid-gray, and white. And we can see here that we have a lot of pixels scrunched up over towards the left in the very dark gray area, and then it kind of peters off where we have fewer pixels approaching the mid-gray, and then we've got fewer pixels again approaching the white point. And you'll notice then that there's actually a big spike on the right, and that corresponds to this area in our flash trail, because that is burnt out, not in a bad way. That's just the way it has to happen for us to see that trail. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to take the black point, and we're going to say, I want to push all of the pixels at this dark gray area to be less than black, to be black or less than black. So I do that by getting the black point and pushing it in the opposite direction. So you'll see that the curtains become dark because all of these pixels that correspond with the curtain areas are now going to be black or less than black. And you can see the curtains start to kind of disappear as you nudge that over to the right. Now you'll also notice that it has an effect on our subject as well, but that's because it's being applied to the entire image. And we're going to sort that out in a minute. So if you want to, you could even push that a little bit further and make sure that all of the black areas or the curtain areas are gone. You can see now it's pretty much flat black. But you don't want to go too far. If you go too far, then you're just going to start eating into the tones in the skin, things like that. So with the curtain just about black enough, I'm now going to push the gray, the mid-gray, over to the left. And what that's going to do is it's going to say, I want to have all of these pixels brighter than 50% gray. So I get the 50% gray and I move that to the left. And what that allows me to do then is to get some of the brightness back into the mid areas while keeping those dark grays below the black point. So I'm selectively modifying the grays and leaving the black and the white alone. Now, I'm not going to push it too far because it actually looks like it starts to lose detail in the face when I start to push it too far to the left. Actually, that's not going to be a problem. We can push it a little bit further because we're going to mask out the face in a moment anyway. Right, so that's the first step. So we're basically, in this tutorial, we're just looking at applying a layer, and now we're going to look at how we can tell Photoshop where to apply that adjustment within the layer. So on my adjustment layer, you'll see I've got levels 1, and I might just rename that to darken curtains. And you'll see that you have a little icon saying that it's an adjustment. And then to the right of that, you have a little white rectangular window. Now, this actually gives you what's called your mask view. And the mask view is where we're going to specify where in the image this levels adjustment takes place. Now, the way this works is that you have, by default, a white rectangle. In this window, where there is white, the effect will show. Where there is black, the effect will not show. Okay, so that's all you have to remember. So it's basically all, when you know that, it's just about how to get black and white in there. Now, the easiest and most obvious way to do it is with the brush tool and with your color pickers down here. So you have white and black, so you can be saying paint white where I want it to happen, paint black where I want it to not happen. And because it's already currently set to all white, I'm going to switch this to black by clicking on the two little arrows. And I'm going to go up to my brush tool, or I could have hit B and hover over, and I can see that's a really tiny brush. So I'm going to up the size. So at the top there, you'll see a little number and a little indicator about how soft or hard your brush is. And I'm going to push that up to, I'd say, about 350. Yeah. And when I start painting, I'm actually going to start painting through the levels adjustment. So you should see it start to kind of get darker, but it's not actually darkening with the paintbrush. It's getting rid of the levels adjustment on that part of the image. So I'm just poking a hole through the adjustment layer now by painting in black. And if I wanted to, I could actually carry that on down to the coat and such as well. And so I'm just painting over. Now I'm actually going to undo that because I'm going to leave the coat as it is for now, just because I don't want to start painting too close to this streak of light. But it is very handy for getting back the original face. Now, one more thing that you can do if you want to see exactly where you've painted is you select the little mask window on your layer. You can actually see the little black blob there. That indicates the area that I've just painted into. But there's a shortcut, Alt, Shift and click on that, and that will bring up a little paint stroke to show you exactly where you've just been painting. Okay, so this would actually tell me maybe I've gone a little bit too far around the edges, so this might be a chance for me to get the white color up and just kind of pull back in around the edges there so that I'm not coming too far out of the face and onto the hand and stuff. Okay, so you can get quite targeted. I mean, you can paint with tiny brushes and you can get right in on top of this as well, but for now I'm okay. I'm just going to hit Alt, Shift, click again, and that'll get back the original. And now we're good to go with some additional effects that we can target the face specifically.